Hello, today we are going to talk about Mandrake Linux of the year 2000. Mandrake Linux was the most wanted and desired Linux operating system of the year 2000. This is the distro watch page for Mandrake Linux. So in those years, 2000, there was the series 7.0, Air, Helium, and Odyssey in the year 2000, and then Tractopel, Vitamin, and Bluebird with the 8 series in the year 2001 and 2002. We are going to try to install probably 8.2 in a QEMU Virt Manager virtual machine, see if we manage to install it. So this was the operating system that you wanted. If you were starting to use Linux, it had a graphical user interface installer. It was available on ISO files on CD-ROMs. It was something that you paid money for. You got such a pack. Was also available in brick and mortar stores. Many CDs. The CDs look like this. There's installation CD, extra CD, supplemental CD, and then a number of Pro Suite CDs. Okay, let's see what people think of Mandrake Linux. People usually come straight from Windows. The first time they try Linux, they install Mandrake 1, Mandrake, the newest version of that moment. And they're extremely confused that there's a graphical user interface installer. They didn't know how to install the operating system. The operating system finds their mouse, keyboard, graphical user interface, monitor, can configure those. They can see pixels on the screen. They can see a familiar desktop similar to Windows with a panel. Let's see a screenshot. So this is how the desktop looks like, right? KD version, let's go through the table. So 8.2. There's Qt version 2.3.1, which is the last version of Qt that was shipped as the main Qt version by Mandrake. For Mandrake 9 and above, they switched to Qt 3. So this is the last Mandrake version with KD2. Okay, they see that there's a package manager, URPM in this case, which manages packages with the extension RPM, and then just by knowing the package name, you type URPM XMMS, which was the Winamp-like media player of the times. It will search the net for XMMS. No, it doesn't search the internet, it just searches through the repository that's configured for packages on your machine. So it just connects to the mirror of Mandrake Linux that you have configured. It will automatically install any dependencies. Wow, what a feat, right? Mandrake is also the simplest and easiest Linux install I've ever experienced. It's just a graphical user interface wizard with next, next, next. Detected everything, no problem on all my machines. So at that moment, the year 2000, there was the following thing. As usual, not all of the hardware available on Windows machines, like, I don't know, USB devices or PCI devices or Win modems were not supported, but a vast number were supported. But then once you finished installing the operating system, you could not really add more hardware because the /dev directory was created at install time. There was a detector running at install time. On Red Hat Linux, it was called Kudzu. On Debian, it was called Discover. So those things probe all of your PCI and other buses on your computer, detect all of the hardware, and then create the correct needed device blocks and other files in /dev. After that's done, after you add more hardware, you will need to reinstall the operating system again such that the hardware is detected again. Definitely recommend it. Everybody is really happy about the installation experience and with the experience in the first days. But then I'm not really sure if people actually use those Mandrake Linux installations. So they install it, it's shiny, they like it, they paid the money, but then maybe they just go back to using Windows. Maybe they have used just dual boot to see how Linux looks like. And it was before Windows XP. So it was that crepuscular period, the year 2000, between Windows 98 second edition and Windows XP. Okay, here's the installer. The installer looks like this, just a wizard. They also tried to unify the look and feel of the applications that are available on Mandrake. Some of the applications were using the Qt framework, some were using GTK plus. So they try to have a similar theme for both Qt applications and GTK applications, such that both look good in the two major desktops, KDE and GNOME. So Qt applications look okay on GNOME desktop and GTK applications look okay on the KDE desktop. Okay. So the reviewers are really happy. Riser if FS. And maybe this is the most important thing that Mandrake offered, because back in the day you needed to actually configure your xorg.conf file. Otherwise, graphical user interface might not really start. Maybe you had two monitors, maybe your refresh rate was not recognized out of the box, maybe you needed to specify a different resolution, a correct resolution for the monitor, not the built-in small resolutions that are used during the installer. And that meant reading wiki pages and editing the xorg.conf file by hand. Whereas Mandrake had this tool named DracX, which was a graphical user interface application which allowed you to detect your monitors and graphical cards and configure the xorg.conf file in a graphical user interface application manner. They also had many graphical user interface tools for configuring your system and their own control center, Mandrake Control Center, which supplements, in the case of KDE, the KDE control center. This is how one of the tools from the Mandrake graphical user interface configuration tools looks like, which is an editor for the Debian style, modern free desktop work style menus. This is the KD control center. And this is the Mandrake control center. So you have both Mandrake control center and KD control center. This strives to look like a Windows flashy application. Lilo bootloader, not Grob. x386, not x.org. Mandrake cooker is the upstream of Mandrake, so this is a repository where packages get first built and uploaded. Mandrake Soft is a company. Besides KD, it also offered other desktop environments and window managers. Let's get the installation ISOs for Mandrake 8.2 and let's try to boot them in QEMU Manager. I couldn't find anything on the official Mandrake, Mandriva, Open Mandriva web pages, so I just searched straight on the internet, Mandrake version and ISO. I found archive.org and very old mirror sites such as this one from a university in Taiwan. The mirror site for 8.2 looks like this. Again, 3 main ISOs and 2 Pro Suite ISOs with additional applications, fonts, media players, browser, web browser, plugins, etc., which are not open source. On archive.org, only the 3 non-Pro Suite ISOs, so only these 3 are available. You can get them as an ISO, as ISO images, download over HTTP, or you can download them over torrent. So I did not manage to install Mandrake 8.2 Bluebird from the year 2002 because formatting the hard disk took forever. I'm not sure what the issue is there. And next up, I tried with Mandrake Linux 9.2 5-star from 2003. So for that, I'm searching on the internet, Mandrake 9.2. It takes me to the same university in Taiwan. I needed to download the install ISO and the ext ISO. I did not download the internationalization ISO. Next up, let's create the virtual machine. New file, new virtual machine, ISO, browse, 92CD1, generic, forward, 4 gigabytes, CPUs 4, Let's make this smaller because it's IDE and it takes a lot of time to initialize it and format it and partition it forward. Mandrake 92, customize. So the oldest motherboard possible, CPUs, memory, virtual hard disk IDE, CD-ROM IDE. It did not manage to boot from a SATA CD-ROM. Network interface card RTL8139. Let's also remove the tablet and we should be good to go. Press enter. It's booting. I'm not using USB tablet because that was not invented in the year 2003, so I need to press left Ctrl Alt in order to exit the CRAB from QEMU virtual machine. The Mandrake Linux 9.2 installation wizard asks for the keyboard language. This is the EULA. Standard doesn't have is PS2 and works correctly. It responds to my movements of the mouse correctly, but it doesn't have a scroll wheel, so we need to select PS2 mouse with generic PS2 wheel mouse. Next. This is the UI for configuring the mouse and making sure that the mouse works okay. So scroll wheel, up and down, right mouse button, left mouse button, next. I'm not sure what this thing is, but the security level that's less restrictive is the default one, which is standard. Next. Use free disk space on the virtual hard disk, yes. I'm not sure what partitioning scheme or what file system will be used. KDE is a desktop by default. There's also GNOME and other window managers. KDE is what I want. There's servers which can be enabled by default installed in the installer. There's the documentation, console tools, configuration, internet, and office. So KDE workstation plus console, we should have at least a graphical user interface console. This is probably the Mandrake control center. This default selection seems okay. It's a bit too much software for my tastes, and it doesn't have Mozilla Firefox. Or, as it were in the year 2003, maybe it was the Mozilla suite. Next. It says that WebMin is installed by default, and this is a web-based control center. Asks me if I really want WebMin. I do not want it, but let's keep the defaults, which is WebMin enabled. In here, it's copying software files from the first CD, the installation CD. And at some point, it will ask that I insert the CD2 ext at this point. So let's move the mouse by ungrabbing it. So left Control, left Alt at the same time. CD-ROM, let's switch to the second one. So that's Mandrake 92 CD2. Choose volume, apply, back to where we were. OK. It copies some more files from the second CD. And now it's going to ask for the third CD, the internationalization one, which I do not want. English US is enough for me, so there's no need for any internationalization CD. I'm going to press cancel. Okay, so we're at the step install system, and now we moved to the next step, which is root password. Sudo was not a thing in the year 2003. Next, username. Advanced is the shell of the user. Bash is the best. Next. Do I want auto login into KDE? No. Now it says that it's almost done configuring the correct keyboard, country, time zone, mouse, network interface, card, what this thing is. Let's see. So it's auto detect. Sounds okay. Ethernet cards. DHCP. No proxies. Do you want to apply settings? Yes. As it was already configured, so there was no need for me to actually click on the configure button. Firewall disabled, great. Bootloader Lilo. And says that the only thing that's not configured is graphical user interface, configure. Asks for a Xorg resolution and refresh rate. So let's go for this thing, the next one. So 1020p, 3x4 probably, and 60 Hertz. Next. Default VESA. I can test that the resolution works, so 1080p. The best is 20 bits color. Okay. Do you want to test? Yes. Changes the resolution in the virtual machine. Is this correct? Yes. I can set up your computer to automatically start in graphical user interface mode. Yes. Okay. Next. No updates, please. Next. And that's it. Reboot. Let's see that the CD-ROM was removed. How do we see that? Has not been, but there's the only boot option to boot from the virtual hard disk. Okay, it boots the Linux Enterprise with an E missing kernel. There's an HDA 1 and an HDA 6. There's a swap partition. This is the resolution that we have selected, which is pretty tall. Administrator, password. This is probably KDM. And I should have selected a window manager or desktop environment. Hopefully it lands into KDE version 3 this time, because it uses Qt 3. This is the first run wizard from Mandrake, not from KDE. The prefer desktop KDE. The default theme is something from Mandrake. Mail client, we have Kmail, the KDE graphical user interface mail application available. I'm not going to connect to the internet to fetch mail via POP3 protocol. And a questionnaire, feedback from users. Let's not send this questionnaire. And now there's the Mandrake Club. Full access to commercial applications. Special mirror sites exclusively for club members. Voting which software should make it to the Mandrake Linux CDs. I am not a member. So that those were the sources of income for Mandrake Soft, selling CDs and the packaged version of Mandrake Linux, the Mandrake Club Advantage, and they also had a non-desktop software offering that was Red Hat Enterprise Linux compatible. Another product, not Mandrake Linux, but the Mandrake Linux, I don't know, corporate server or something. Forward. Ready to go. Okay. The KDE 3.1 splash screen. This is another welcome wizard. Probably still from Mandrake because it has the wrong icon. Mandrake Club, another chance of buying something from Mandrake Soft. Documentation, the books and documentation have been installed. We have kept the checkbox enabled in the installer. So this is a wizard that will appear each time you restart your computer. Let's see what this thing does. So this is KDSU, not sudo, but SU, and it will remember my password. Okay, this is the Mandrake Control Center 9.2. Okay, but I can start it from the start menu. Let's actually make this full screen such that we can see the KDE panel, because the resolution 1080p is very close to 1024p. Let's look at the documentation. Documentation is not installed. It's going to install it use from RPM packages, which I'm not exactly sure it will work, because maybe the repositories for Mandrake Linux 9.2 are not online. Let's see what it does. Okay. Not very useful error messages. For virtual desktops by default with a virtual desktop switcher, the KDE panel, the system tray with clipper, and the organizer. Yes, key organizer. Show tips on startup on some KDE applications. Calendar has been modified. Do you want to save it? Yes. Cancel. Discard. The digital clock button to hide the panel. Start menu. Right click menu on the start menu button. There's the menu editor there. You can add more items to the KDE panel. This is the show desktop button, which minimizes all applications. Home is probably Conqueror. So Conqueror and then show the desktop. And it's a toggle button. Okay, Conqueror is the KDE3 file manager, parts, host, web browser, FTP client, SSH client, CD, audio CD, Reaper, and whatnot. So back where we were. This is the file manager. Let's look at the other applications. There's this applications menu, which is probably the menu from Mandrake, because not all of the desktop environments and file managers did respect the same standard for having the menu of applications. Some window managers had their own standard for how to create a menu with applications. And probably this Mandrake menu is available in all file managers. Probably the solution that was used by GNOME and KDE got merged together and formed a standard. So the solution for how to present a start menu, how to present a menu with the applications installed on the computer. Okay, so networking, www, Conqueror web browser, the same application. I tried to make it use the half right of the screen, but that functionality was not implemented yet. By dragging by the title bar to the right edge of the screen. Okay, you can open HTML files. I'm not sure if any of these bookmarks still work. Throbber must have if you have a web browser, and one that's as fancy as possible. Maybe the web browser doesn't even support HTTPS, we'll see. Business cases. osnews.com. Maybe it's an issue with not supporting HTTPS, the Conqueror web client, whereas all of the web servers refuse to serve HTTP anymore. Okay, you must have a ton of buttons in the toolbar, because otherwise you cannot use your web browser, right? You need a button for printing, for searching, for whatever this thing is. Okay. You can edit the toolbars by default. You just grab the toolbars by this grab thingy and you move them around. Toolbars are not locked by default. The same configuration dialog for the toolbars that is present in KDE Plasma 6, in KDE applications using Qt 6. There's handbooks, still available in the latest version of KDE software. KDE Help Center, the same application. Unix man pages still exists in the KDE Help Center. Applet manuals for these. Maybe the system tray icon applications. And also to the panel you can add things. Application launcher, clock, kchar select, cases guard, clipper, pager. Let's have cases guard. Okay, I thought I have 4 vCPUs. Let's see if we have a terminal in here. This guy. Many tips on startup. Each time you restart, you're going to see this interesting thing. The fonts are not the greatest. How do we zoom? Font large. Okay. So kernel, Linux kernel 2.4.222, which is a very modern kernel for the start of the years 2000. Who am I? Like this. No LSBL key yet. No LS hardware yet. No project Utopia yet. xinetd, which is a daemon that listens to a list of given TCP ports, and when a client tries to connect there, the correct server will be started in order to listen. And the connection will not be lost. So the client connects to xinetd, and xinetd passes the open listening TCP socket to the actual server. XFS, file system, KDE init. How do we exit this thing? PS3, PS3. So there's the KDM desktop manager, not SDDM, the X server, and then a user session, which then runs KDE init with bash and PS3 in this case. Where is the console? Not shown in here. Okay, let's see if we can edit the fonts. How do we do that? Configuration, KDE, configure your desktop. This thing. So I managed to start the control center from KDE, the other one being the control center from Mandrake, which is this thing. Let's see if we have fonts in here. File manager, no way. Fonts. Font size, this guy. Okay, there's anti-aliasing for fonts, subpixel rendering, RGB. Apply, let's see if it makes a difference. Only newly started applications will use the new settings, of course. Fonts. So there's no Noto yet, but there's the Bitstream Vera fonts. The Liberation ones. I don't see them in here. Let's start the KDE Control Center again. The whole desktop is also stretched because it's 1080p stretched to 1024p stretched to 1080p. There's themes. Theme manager. Discard. The cute widgets themes, which are called styles. So Galaxy is the default theme from Mandrake, and the same theme is applied also to GTK applications. Probably Mandrake Control Center is a GTK application with, I don't know, written in Perl probably. Ceramic, the style with, that's very similar to the first versions of macOS, Aqua, but not quite better, right? Marble, which looks as some sort of commercial Unix. Motif, the same thing. And Windows. So this is it. This is Mandrake 9.2. This is the version I have managed to install. I could not install Mandrake 8.2. This was the most wanted Linux operating system at the beginning of the years 2000. It helps you a lot. In my case, when I did not have a mouse, it asked me, hey, I cannot see your mouse. Please select your mouse from a huge list. When it couldn't see my SATA CD-ROM, it said I could not find any CD-ROM. Here's a list of all of the KDE, all of the kernel, Linux kernel modules. Please select one. Maybe this way we will be able to see your CD-ROM. So a ton of graphical user interface on top of the usual papercuts of Linux, of the usual issues and bugs that you encounter in Linux that force you to actually log into the terminal and fix from the command line that issue are fixed with graphical user interface tools and a ton of smarts, graphical user interface smarts by this Linux operating system Mandrake, which caters towards people that start using Linux. Many people were Windows only started using Linux with Mandrake a bit, couple of hours today, try the new version of Mandrake, the next release, use it for a day. When a new version of Mandrake appears, install it, see if you can get further, use it for a month, and progressively you're going to use more and more Linux and eventually even get to contribute to Linux. Not only to read from Linux, but also to write to Linux and to the open source community. Do your contributions, change source code, not only use the open source free software source code. Thank you.